mountain, bound for the mountain, bound for the mountain, over the mountain, the hill, and the fountain, away to the chase, away. Not the cold storm or the danger, over the mountain away go to ranger, over the mountain, the hill, and the fountain, away to the chase, away. See there the wild deer trembling, panting, trembling, panting, one moment pausing, no longer standing, away to the chase, away. Rover, see him, rover, catch him, over the mountain, the hills, and the fountain, away to the chase, away. Just right for the chase hounds, and the horses still in the race all night long till the break of dawn. Merrily the chase goes on, over the mountain, the hill, and the fountain, away to the chase, away. Rover, see him, rover, catch him, over the mountain, the hill, and the fountain, away to the chase, away. All right, we're going to get down to business now with Cumberland Mountain Deer Chase, just as I learned it from Hubby Jenkins in the mess around video. First things first, tuning. This is in what some people call old C or drop C. It's the, some people call it the minstrel banjo tuning. Just like your standard G tuning, except your low D string is going to go down to a C. So this is a C now. So just to review, starting from your first string going up, D, B, G, C, and G. All right, so this is going to sound funny if we play it open. Makes for a kind of jazzier chord. So what we're going to do with this tuning is usually play out of the key of C. So we play this C chord. We're used to playing this C chord in standard tuning. We don't need that second finger down here anymore because that string's tuned to a C. So here's our C chord. That's kind of our home base. This song utilizes a lot of chords, so we're going to go through those first and make sure you have those under your fingers before we move through the whole arrangement. So first off is that C chord we just talked about. F chord will look like this. If you know all your chords in standard open G tuning, then a lot of these, like your F chord, will just look like your regular F chord, but we don't need, again, we don't need that fretted note on the fourth string. We're just going to leave that one open. There's your C chord. Use this fingering as well. It's going to be important. So we have first, second, ring. We're not using our pinky rather. We have first, second, pinky. We're not using our third finger on this one. On our C chord that we just did, it's first and third. All right. Next is the G7 chord. And here we're fretting on the second fret of the fourth string with our second finger. And then our pinky's grabbing the third fret on the first string. If I got rid of my other fingers here. Alright, so we have C. And pay attention to this fingering here. Make sure you're copying my fingering. F. And G. Which is technically a G7 there. But it functions just the same. Those are the main chords we play throughout the tune. Then there's the fancy part that goes up the neck. And those are just alternate versions of C's, F's, and G's. Or really just C's and F's. If you did my 30 days course, you learned all about the movable chords, and this should make total sense to you. But either way, we'll go through it now for when we get to that part. So our first one is a C chord. We're going to play it right here. We're going to use our first 3 fingers on this one. So you'll notice first finger on the 8th fret, 2nd string, 2nd finger on the 9th fret, 3rd string, 3rd finger on the 10th fret, 1st string. From there, we'll slide down to our F chord, and this one looks like a D chord. You may know it's just moved up from a D to an E to an F. It's just a diagonal shape, so starting on the 5th fret on the 3rd string, and then we go down 6th and 7th, down on the 2nd and 1st strings. Just our first 3 fingers once again, so we have C, F. While we're at the 5th fret, we'll go ahead and bar it for a C chord. Now technically, you can just leave that low 4th string note out of there. Just bar the first 3 strings. And then we have back to our open C chord. And that's it for your chord forms, so make sure you've got all those under your fingers before we move on to the measure by measure breakdown, which we'll do right now. All right, measure number 1 starts out with that F chord we talked about. And it starts out with a kind of a hit here. We're just strumming approximately those first 3 strings. That's our boom. Chicka has a phantom stroke, and then another boom, chicka. It's going from an F chord to a G chord. So we have boom, chicka, boom, chicka. All right, second measure. So here we're just doing boom on that 5th fret note up on the 1st string. Boom, boom, hammer on, chicka. So we have, we're hammering on that entire C chord shape, right? We're strumming about the first 3 strings. So we have boom, boom, chicka. Hopefully that makes sense. That's really fun once you get the hang of it. Just kind of hammering on that whole chord shape. Now let's look at measure number 3. Starts out the same as the first measure. Start with that F, boom, chicka, boom, chicka. One more time. On to the 4th measure. Interesting little sequence here. We have a phantom stroke drop thumb scenario. Chicka, boom, boom, chicka. So if we combine that with the 3rd measure, it might make a little more sense. All right, now we go up to our up the neck chords. It's pretty straightforward right hand stuff here. As soon as you get the chord shapes and coordinate, slide them up and down the neck, this will be pretty simple for you. So we start with that C chord shape up here, up the neck. We're really just doing boom, chicka on each of these chord shapes. I've got the phantom stroke in there because that's what I end up doing in real time, really. If you want to articulate that spot where I'm doing the phantom stroke, that's all right. That's up to you. But for now, I'll just teach it as I've got it written because this is the way I tend to play it. All right. boom, chicka, boom, chicka. So that's measure number 5. We got our C chord, F chord. Really nothing too complicated there, but it might be a challenge if these are new chord shapes for you. Might be a challenge to get the hang of that, but once you do, no problem. So we have boom, chicka, boom, chicka. Next measure, the bar chord for the C, boom, chicka, open chord C, boom, chicka. So the 5th and the 6th measures together. And now we're going to conclude that whole little, I call it the interlude part. Hubby calls it the riff, which is a little cooler terminology. Either way, we're going to conclude this little repeating musical motif here. Starts out with some familiar action here on the F chord. Boom, chicka, boom, chicka. One more time on that measure. Onto the 8th measure, grab that C chord. So it's, for the 8th measure, it's just, string-wise, it's just 2, 1, 2. So the 7th and the 8th together. And you notice in the tab, I've got the last hit written out as a bit of a strum, because that's how I end up playing it. All right. So that takes care of the riff, or the interlude, whatever you want to call it. We also use that as the intro. And now we'll look at the verses. Here we're essentially just chording along behind the melody that's being sung, just like we learned in the very early days if you started out with the beginner crash course. I did tab out the general way that I play the chords, which boom notes I'm hitting, but there's a little freedom here. As long as you're hitting the right chords and just doing your boom chicka behind the vocals, you should be able to mix and match a little bit according to your whims. Let's go ahead and take a look at the verse. So we start with measure number 9. We're on this G7th chord. Remember this shape from earlier. All right. Holding the whole chord down. One more time on that measure. Really straightforward. Then we go to our C chord. I'm not going to spend too much time on these measures because they really are just basic strumming. Back to, for measure 11, back to our G7 chord. And measure 12, back to the C. I mix it up in the tab a little bit with the boom note. Whoops. Then we go to the F chord. That's measure 13 there. Measure 14 is back to the C chord. Measure 15, we're back to the G7. And the 16, we wrap the verse up and we go boom, 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 chicka. Those are those really nice hits that Hubby was doing there in the mess around video, reminiscent of Uncle Dave Macon. So let me play you that whole, I'll play you the whole verse all together, and maybe just kind of hum or lightly sing the words to it so you can hear how they all fit in. So we'll start on measure 9 and go to measure 16 there. 2, 3. Way away, bound for the mountain one. Here, how that all fits in. All right, so honestly, that really takes care of everything you need to play this tune. We've got the little riff part, the interlude, which has all the ups and downs and all that. And then we have the verse chords that you play. Once you've got those two things down, it's really a matter of just arranging them. So I shared in the lesson notes the particular way, the arrangement that Hubby did when I recorded him, and I'll just use that as a template, and you can follow that arrangement exactly or you can just kind of mix and match them as you choose. One more little thing that you might have noticed in the mess around video when Hubby was playing it, he did do a little outro reminiscent of Uncle Dave's outro on the recording that he kind of referenced as an inspiration for his version. So I copped that for you as well. Might be a little bit of an interpretive translation there, but I did the best I could to get at least a really good facsimile. So go ahead, and that's the last thing we'll do is take a look at this outro, and then I'll set you loose to learn all the parts and then put them together as you see fit. So the outro happens right after we're playing the riff, and we come up here. Now we start the outro. Drop your second finger down like you're playing a C chord out of standard tuning. And we're going to be using this note off and on for the next couple of measures. So the first measure of the outro. I'll play you the first two measures, measure 17 and measure 18. See what we're doing? I'm not playing this too slowly because I feel like you should have a pretty good grip on this. Basic strumming, just moving the boom notes around, maybe adding a note here and there. Measure 17, 18. So the next two measures, we just repeat that exact idea. All right, I'm going to move on. Measure 21. Very slight variation. Just a different boom note order. Measure 22, you see, is in 2/4 time because it's just going to fill up the space of one single boom chicka note. Had an uneven amount of beats in this arrangement, so you just have to kind of alter the time signature of one of the measures to make it all fit. Anyway, we're still on the C chord, and we just do another boom chicka. Nothing special there beyond the fact that the way I've notated it is we have a 2/4 measure. So we don't need to dwell there. Measure 23 gets interesting. We jump up to what is an F chord, really. We're playing over an F chord shape. You don't have to have your pinky down here. If you just do like I do and just don't hit that first string with my right hand, I actually just fret these two notes of the F chord, my first, second finger notes, and just avoid hitting the first string. All right, so measure 23. Right. Measure 24. Notice we're basically just playing an F chord, but we're dropping this one note. And that just kind of makes it into a minor sound, a bluesier sound. I'll play that measure for you one more time. Let's go on to measure 25. Same idea. Now we get to the grand finale, the climactic ending here. We've got measure 27, just a C chord. And here I just translated what I caught Hubby doing on the performance video and the mess around. He does something that I have a hard time pulling off. I have a all downstroke measure here, so we have boom, 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 all on the C chord. G7 on the next measure, same thing. So if we go back to the 27th measure, just play those four ending measures for you together. You'll hear them all in context. All right, I'm going to go back now and play you the whole thing just the way it's written in the tab, nice and slowly. I'll just play through each part once. So we'll play through that intro interlude part, play through the verse part, play through the outro, just the way it's written in the tab. Now we'll hit the verse. And now for the outro.